Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Ayari, and you're listening to the Yes Institute podcast. We welcome everyone into this conversation. The mission of Yes Institute is to prevent suicide and ensure the healthy development of all youth through powerful communication and education on gender and orientation. Today, we'll be discussing masculinity. In-depth inquiry in our courses uncovers the correlation between the stigma of mental health and mass shootings through the lens of gender, specifically masculinity. According to the Violence Project, 98% of mass shootings in the last 50 years have been men, and a majority of them have been white men. Yes Institute conducts courses such as Boys Don't Cry and Masculinity Distinguished to give the participants a better understanding of the connection between gender, mental health, and mass shootings. Throughout these conversations, participants discover the connection between gender expectations for boys and men and the ways in which emotions are displayed. High school boys that we presented to last fall shared that they weren't allowed to cry, and when they were sad, they learned to channel that into anger. One of the participants in one of our recent masculinity courses, a Miami-Dade County Public School teacher, shared that we as a society have to work to redefine what masculinity is in order to see a change. Before we begin to redefine masculinity, let's take a moment to reflect on how we are currently relating to masculinity. One of our interns, Claire, sat down to interview her partner, Sam, to discuss what it means to be a man, the pressure and expectations around gender, the racial aspect of masculinity, and the experiences he's had over the years.
Hi, I'm Claire.
And I'm Sam.
What people or experiences really shaped your idea of masculinity or manhood growing up?
Growing up, my father was easily the biggest influence on my idea of masculinity. And a lot of people have, a crucifix or a picture of Jesus above their TV. We had John Wayne. From a very early age, I was told to be the strong, silent type. Your problems will, be fine, just bury them deep down. We did communicate to a certain extent, but, you didn't cry. We definitely didn't complain. A lot of our role models were in that same way. Just, this is how it's done. This is what a man is. They're loyal. You're supposed to be fearless. I specifically remember this one time we were at a Chicago Bears game, and my dad was there with all of his friends, and my little brothers were there, and one of the men had said, I don't like my wife, telling me things to do around the house. I wear the pants. And I had said something along the lines to my dad, that's not how it is in our house. The talking to and the yelling I got from that one comment, I still think about that. I must have been 7 years old. He sat me down at my grandparents' house after, and I was just bawling. He was yelling at me. He's like, that's not how a man acts. This is how it is. This is how you portray it to be in our house. I am the man. That's how we act. And for you to go out and just throw me under the bus like that, you should be ashamed of yourself. And that's just one of those things that, always stuck with me. Yeah. And it wasn't until later that I realized just how screwed up that was. In high school, it just kind of got worse for a while. I had a girlfriend in high school. I was gone for a weekend, and I had heard that another guy had hit on her or picked her up, put her over his shoulders. The next day when I got back, everyone in the lunchroom was like, Sam Baroni just got back from his vacation, and he knows that this guy did this to his girlfriend. And it was this huge thing. There was a crowd of people following me around the lunchroom waiting to see what I did to this kid. And it was just at first I just kind of wanted to talk to him, just like, hey, can you clear up the situation? Yeah. But as the pressure just continued to pile on, eventually it got confrontational. Luckily, it wasn't at school, but it got very physical. And looking back at it, it's just so stupid and immature. And it hurts me to think about that kid to this day. So further on in high school, I came to terms with my masculinity a bit more. I loved wearing like the tight jeans, but I was still friends with a lot of the jocks, so that was kind of a constant battle. And one time, one of my really good friends, we wanted to go get some new skate shoes together. And we saw one of our other friends who was on the football team before we went, and he's like, "What are you guys up to today?" And I was like, "Joe and I are gonna go get some new shoes and grab lunch, just do a little shopping." And after Joey, we drove off, Joey's like, "Sam, don't say that. You don't say that to another guy." I was like, "What do you mean? We're just a couple of buddies grabbing some shoes together." I was just confused by that. But it also made me understand this is how a lot of other men think, and I felt like I had to kind of just change the way I acted with some groups to just make them feel more comfortable. And then throughout college, eventually, I did join a fraternity. I joined one that had aligning ideals, different. They're from different places in the country. I was very interested in that, and eventually I became the sergeant in arms. And that basically means you're the security guard in the house. And I got to really enforce a lot of my ideals eventually. One of my good friends who was in my pledge class smacked this girl's butt right in front of me. And this was like my first week on the job, and I lost it. It's just we call ourselves the gentlemen of Delta Chi, and that's how you're gonna act. I kicked him out so fast and just made sure that everyone in the house knew that that's not allowed, otherwise you're out of here. And from that point on, when everyone started listening to that, I felt more comfortable just embracing being not just a gentleman, but just a good person, just trying to make women and anyone who comes to the house feel comfortable, and not there's a bunch of drunk, crazed men around you that can just take advantage of you whenever you wanted. That's just something I was so against.
So what were some turning points for you in terms of kind of figuring out what you wanted your masculinity to look like, as opposed to what your dad or other people in your childhood wanted you to be?
Well, I was always a pretty small kid growing up, short, and I always felt like I had to make it up with just lifting a lot of weights. I was a wrestler, just constantly trying to feel masculine as much as possible, just I need to be big and tough. And that lasted all through high school. And then there was a point with my mom. She had remarried at this point, and I came home one night, and she had a pretty bloody nose. I got in a fight, pretty big altercation with the new husband, and I just had this overwhelming sense of just got to take care of the people I love, and at whatever cost. He was probably had 100 pounds on me, but that didn't really stop me. And that day I was like, "Mom, Mikey, my little brother, we're moving back in with my dad." But my dad was like, "Come on in, you guys all stay at my place in Chicago." And it was just so much about the family and about the people that I care about. It strayed away from a lot of those other feelings of just being stronger and being more powerful than someone, just to prove a point. And then later on, after I met you, I still was struggling with my masculinity. I definitely thought I was a macho guy, and early on in a relationship, I tried to prove that. We were at Taco Bell one night, and some guy starts harassing us, asking me what I was getting 40 times. I was like, "Bro, I just told you what I'm getting. Please just back off. We're just trying to order." And after, it almost got physical. And then after, Claire asked me, "How did that make you feel?" And what was the first feeling that you had after that? And I realized I never asked Claire how she felt. I should have immediately been first of all, before I even acknowledge this guy, "Are you okay?" And if Claire's okay, then I'm fine. I could walk away. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to get in a fight over something like this.
So how do you think your whiteness has played a role in your masculinity?
It wasn't until the last 5-6 years that I really understood how big of a part it did play into my masculinity growing up. In grade school, high school, I was constantly running from the police, and it was a big joke. It was just a funny thing to do that all my friends and I would do. We would aid cop cars, we would have high school parties, and everyone would just run. Zero consequence. We felt nothing. And just in the world today, knowing that I did that as a kid, it's just like, just about as white privileged as you can get.
Thinking about the future, if you were to have kids in the future, how might you do things differently? Like, what kind of parent would you want to be in terms of, if you had a son, or if you had really any kids, like how would you want to approach that?
I mean, regardless of gender, I want to play catch, with my offspring. I just love activities and being around them, I don't care if, whatever they are, I just want to be spending time with them outdoors. I love to camp, play baseball, hockey, and I'll paint, I'll do makeup, whatever they feel comfortable with that I also enjoy. I don't even have to enjoy it that much. I just want them to feel comfortable with whatever they end up wanting to do. It's just, not that my upbringing was super, it's you have to do this and you have to do that. My parents got me an Easy Bake Oven when I was a kid, and that was so nice. And I'm very into cooking. My older brother's a chef, and that was one of those things that we always talk about. So yeah, just really listening to them, but at the same time, I want to play baseball with one of them.
Sam's experience with masculinity is one that our education team hears often. Men are expected to behave more aggressively, not show emotions, and white men have different consequences when interacting with police than men of color. When Claire asked Sam about his future as a father, Sam redefined masculinity and reclaimed what it means to be a man. Here are organizations that are connecting with Yes Institute to increase awareness and initiate meaningful conversations on developing healthy and whole people. Miami-Dade County Public Schools, St. Martin's Episcopal School in Atlanta, Georgia, Sony Music US Latin DE&I Task Force and Somos Employee Affinity Group, South Florida Law Enforcement LGBTQ Coalition, and Young Men's Preparatory Academy in Miami, Florida. If you'd like Yes Institute to lead a dialogue for your community, check out our website at yesinstitute.org and email our team at info@yesinstitute.org for more information. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you for listening.